Welcome back, you beautiful people. The first thing I want to do is show you how this ecosystem actually first began, how I made the rainforest ecosystem and what's in there so far. I will show you a little bit later on what I've added since. The additions were all voted by yourselves in the community, so I really do appreciate you for putting something forward because it really did help me when deciding what I wanted to keep in this rainforest. The first thing I needed to do was add the cleanup crew. This is the base for an ecosystem. This consisted of springtails, isopods, millipedes, worms, and many different types of isopod species. I also added a couple of colonies of crickets. Although these are pests, everything in this ecosystem further down the line benefits from them being in here. I also added a base layer for the aquatic portion of this ecosystem as well. This was things like planaria, aquatic isopods, daphnia, tubifex, and different things that would benefit this ecosystem. This is all locally sourced from a pond near me, and I do think it will give it that absolute kickstart that we need. And when I say I added a lot of isopod species, believe me, I did. This included millipede species too though. I added native and exotic species. This includes different types of springtail species as well. But I think this will give it a really good base layer to start off with, and I think it will succeed from there on in. It's now been around 3 weeks time. Everything was setting in exactly how I wanted it to, but ultimately for me the only thing was the orchid sadly lost all of its petals. I do know it will bounce back, but that was the main thing for me I was a little bit gutted about, and sadly we'll have to wait until the next bloom. A lot of you have been asking me the same question lately. This is actually the preference on an auto misting system versus manually misting that setup yourself. For me, I always manually mist every single setup, but I understand once you get into the huge numbers of setups, auto misting is probably the best option. Not only that as well, you can then manage the parameters a lot easier as opposed to one big overload of spray down. But at the same time, as long as you know your tank and you know your setup, you can control that yourself through manual misting. For me, I like to engage with my animals a lot more. I like to go more personal with them. For species that are more skittish, I've done quite well in sort of getting them used to me at least, and I never really will fully have those tame. And I guess it's just nice to know that the efforts I put in with manual misting, it is starting to pay off, and the skittish species, or typically aren't as skittish as usual. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you prefer manual misting or auto mist systems? Just a side note, what I'm replaying there is when I built it is because a lot of you have said you want to see full length videos of the builds. So what I'll be doing next is my next build video, which will be in a few weeks time. That'll actually be a full detailed video of me breaking every single thing down. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. Now's for the new inhabitants. The next thing, the 5 American green tree frogs. You can see all the different colorations and patterns that they have on their bodies. I think this is really, really cool. I was initially adding or going to add red-eyed tree frogs. A lot of you have kept saying in the comments that's what you wanted. Ultimately for me, they are an expensive species to buy. Also getting hold of them was really hard, to be honest. The American tree frogs were there in the shop when I walked in, and I thought, well, these are beautiful. I want them either way. The guy said they'd had them for months, so he did decide to do a discount on all 5 of them, and I snapped them up straight away. They were also split between 2 different setups. They were currently living with the next inhabitant that I'll be adding in here. You beautiful people voted for green anoles as one of the inhabitants. That was initially what I went in there for, but these were actually inside the American green tree frog enclosures. This was a guaranteed pair of long-tailed lizards. In the shop, they were super inquisitive, but extremely skittish. This also meant that I knew they were already compatible with the American tree frog. And instantly going into this new setup, it seemed like they were just relaxed. As you'll know, in pet stores, they supply everything or in such mass production that the setups they're in are always tiny, and he really did not want to leave my hand. I did have to actually end up coaching him off onto the rock, and just enough time for his partner to be added straight into the tank just after him. What you notice straight away about the male is that the colours on them are much more vibrant than the female. However, the female does have a much longer tail. It took me quite a while to eventually get him off me. He was enjoying being on my hand. I don't know if it was the warmth or I was just very, curious and was scared and wasn't sure what to do with this brand new enclosure. But I ended up having to coach him off, and he sat there patiently waiting for his partner to join him. It was then time to introduce his wife. I could tell straight away that she seemed much more confident than the male and much less skittish. You'll actually see that later on in the video, and I won't go into too much detail right now. She looks very fat and very gravid. You can see she isn't as vibrant as the male, but her tail is absolutely huge. and don't be jealous, gents. With slow movement and very gentle touches, I think over time I will get this female extremely used to me, to the point where I open the glass and hopefully she recognises me straight away that I'm the one who feeds her tummy. I was still not sure what the male was doing, but he really did decide that that was his spot and he was just going to chill there, and that moving was on his terms. They were starting to explore the canopy. There ends up being a few places that they actually decide to switch between, but I can show you that in the next video update on this tank. I absolutely love the curiosity of these American tree frogs. They're always moving around. They are extremely good hunters, and to be honest, watching them hunt is absolutely crazy because they just hit every single mark. We now have these established colonies of crickets, which every single thing in here eats. The mating calls sound incredible. Shortly after, the long-tailed lizard and the frog decided they would be the best cuddle buddies in all of the lands. When I turned up with the camera, that's when they decided to actually wake up and realise that there was a big giant trying to film them. But until that moment, they were fast asleep, cuddling each other. It was super cute. They were directly under the UV and obviously just enjoying a nice little bask. Straight after work, my daughter's always wanting to come into the animal room and feed Apollo. While she feeds him with the worms, I do the rest of the maintenance around the whole room, tidy up, clean up, hoover, anything I need to do while she keeps herself busy. I've been trying to hand feed these for a long time now. It feels like I've been trying forever to get these to hand feed, or at least tongue feed, sorry. But it took around 2 weeks of having them for them to finally feed by the tongues. Every now and then the male is skittish and runs off and doesn't want to feed from them, whereas the female, she just jumps straight in for those crickets and she'll go on my hand, feed from the tongues, and I'm hoping to one day feed her from my hands directly. It's a little bit of a milestone for me because I have been trying this every single day. Every day I missed it down, and finally after a couple of weeks it really does feel like I'm getting somewhere. They are very used to me feeding them, and in future I'm hoping, like I say, when I open the glass they hop down to see me. And finally, this is day 1 and this is day 60. And to show you the crazy difference within 1 day of a time lapse, these plants grow phenomenally quick. And then the amount of movement within the ecosystem itself is also really, really cool. The microfauna is doing extremely well. This is a really good sign because for the microfauna to do well, the bigger things also have to do better. It's a really good sign for me, especially if the isopods really do take off. This gives them an available snack all of the time. And last but not least, one of my frogs decided to give you all the most beautiful love it could ever give you all. A love heart shape within its tummy. The same goes from me. I can't thank you all enough for the support, and you are all absolutely awesome for every single person that clicks, likes, subscribes to the video. Thank you so much. Which brings me down to the point where I say, if you haven't yet liked, subscribed, or even hit that notification icon, now is the time. I really appreciate you getting to this point in the video, and as always from me, peace and love, I'm out.